What you gotta do is, first close your hand. When your brother comes home, you just go like this. Just tell him they said, hi. You got it? Try it once.
They said, hi.
You're listening to the Drinks in a Movie podcast, hosted by Rudy Ruiz. Spoiler alert.
All right, what's up, everybody? Drinks in a Movie podcast. We are back.
Hey, yo.
It is Rudy and co-host Matt.
What up?
If you are coming back after this hiatus to listen again, thank you for sticking around. If you're a new listener, thanks for checking it out and giving it a listen. Hopefully you like. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the YouTube channel.
Dude, in all the years doing this, I think it's the first time I've ever heard you say rate, review, and subscribe, man. I'm
so,
shit. It's getting legit. Sorry.
I'm so bad. I'm so bad at that.
I know, man. That's what I'm saying.
And
how funny.
This will probably be the last time I do it.
Yeah, I know. That's all you get,
never,
folks.
Never think about it. But it's like, you know what? If the folks like it, they'll do it.
And it's funny how often I forget to subscribe to like channels or stuff that I actually like, and then I take 10 hours trying to look for that channel again. Right. So it's actually better.
Yeah, man. So we're recording this. You know, I've taken at least a month or maybe a little over a month off. You know, started the new job, been busy at that.
Happy New Year, by the way. Congrats on the new gig.
Thank you. Yeah. Happy New Year.
Actually doing production. So you're like,
well, a little bit, not exactly the production I want to do, but
I mean, in all fairness, there's a lot less movies and shit being made right now. So
yeah, it is a crazy time for movies, and it's nuts to think that we're about to go through a period of like not a lot coming out. And word around the campfire is that IATSE is going to go on strike in the summer as well, which will also, hinder us a bit. But anyway, yeah, it's February 2nd as we record this. I'm going to say that just because we're going to do a couple episodes and I never know the order these things come out.
This is for your
in case we reference something that ends up being out of date.
Totally.
It has been very busy at work.
It's kind of interesting enough. It's kind of Oscar season, which is, we're talking about a movie that wasn't nominated for any Oscars, but it's interesting that it is kind of that. There's a lot of, I actually I was just at the theater today, and for a movie that's been out for a few weeks, there was actually a fair amount of people at the theaters. I think
that's good.
It was I was glad to see that they're going to see this kind of movie. Anyway,
very good. Very good. All right. So this week we're going to be talking about 1979's Boulevard Nights, starring Danny De La Paz. And for our drink, we'll get more into the movie in a second, but to start off with our drink, I've got a Mezcal today. We're breaking the seal on this. Let me open this up. There we go. And this is actually a store pick Mezcal.
Oh, wow.
From Louie's Liquor. I'll just start us off with a little bit.
Yeah.
From Louie's Liquor in Azusa, California, really close to where I used to live. And I've gotten a store pick Knob Creek from them before. Every once in a while I go in and I've noticed they just have a full shelf with a bunch of store pick tequilas and mezcals, which is always, it's interesting that like store pick tequilas are becoming a thing, like single barrel picks. And there's a lot of them that are now, I think they have one that was actually finished or aged or whatever in like a reposado that was aged in like Buffalo Trace barrels or William LaRue Weller or whatever. And the Cove has some options like that as well, which is interesting. But yeah, this was one of their mezcal picks. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about it outside the label. The dude, I don't remember his name, but the guy that helped me out that night was like super cool. I love when I can walk into a liquor store and we can just have a and it's all good and not necessarily trying to push them. I mean, it probably made him happy that I went to buy their new Buffalo Trace store pick. So I went in for that and we'll try this at some point too. And I've been wanting to get into mezcal more. I even got a book for Christmas. I forgot the name of it. I haven't had any time to read my new books, but it's something I really want to learn more about.
And I think it's nice, man, to see like some variety because anytime, sometimes I'm in a little bit of a rush or whatever, so I'll go to the market or Costco, whatever, and your options for mezcal and even tequila in general is kind of limited. So the fact that this is becoming a thing, I'm actually totally on board with that. Yeah. Store picks are becoming a thing.
Yeah. And mezcals are starting to like really blow up too, which is a cool thing.
Total Wine as a whole is getting way opening up their
there's a lot. There's like a ton of options, but so this is a private batch selection exclusive from Louie's Liquor in Azusa, California. This is Salvadores, Destilado con Café y Cacao. So cocoa, chocolate. Is that what cacao is? Yeah, right. or cafe, right? Isn't that
I
coffee?
think it's coffee.
With so distilled
We're
with
being bad Southern Californians right now. By
chocolate and distilled with coffee and chocolate. I know. I feel. I'm sad because there's probably a bunch of people that were stoked, like, oh, Boulevard Nights, and let me check out this new podcast. And then they realize that I like don't speak Spanish and know what I'm talking about, and they're gonna be upset by that.
Dude,
I
still get embarrassed that Puerto Rican and I can't speak Spanish. So it's anyway, it's a thing. It says bottle number 32 of 102 back there. So it's,
oh yeah.
I guess it's not a huge batch. So
Yeah. Number 32 of 102, bottled in 2023.
hella clear.
It's an Espadín. It is 98.2 proof, 100% agave. So I did get a little sample of this.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm allowed to say that. They did give me a sample at the store. I'm
Oh, that's
assuming
cool,
that's
man.
okay. But I love when stores do that.
Yeah, hell yeah. Dude.
If that's a bad thing, sorry guys.
Or if that's
if
not
I let
offered
out-
to everyone kind of thing.
if I let out your little secret, but I mean, hey, they sold me.
See, that's what I got to start talking to people when I go into, because I've started to get into the habit of just say if I see a liquor store that looks like maybe there's more than just Budweiser in there, I'll go.
Yeah, right.
So but you never know what you get by asking people.
Yeah. When it comes to tequilas and mezcals, it's hard for me to pull out any notes. I know, like, okay, here's that agave.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
there's
You
clearly
get
like
that,
it's
yeah.
that spirit, but as far as like the nitty gritty details, it's really tough.
For me, it always comes back to I want to say the word floral. Even though I don't necessarily think, I don't know if that's what's in there, but for some reason I
Well, I mean,
maybe that's the agave.
the agave is a plant. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Espadín, I can tell you that is the Espadín is one of the plants because there's so many different kinds and it depends on the terroir. In Espadín, you see a lot, and that's usually the cheaper option because I think it takes like 6 years for it to mature enough to where they can even harvest it to make the spirit out of it. Whereas there's other agave plants, there's different types that can take 20 years, 25 years, like for it to mature until they can even use it. So it's interesting. I love that aspect of it where when it comes to whiskey, it's like, you're aging it in the barrel for X amount of time. But with mezcal, typically they're clear and they're not aged because you want the spirit in its purest form.
Oh, interesting.
So it's almost like, from what I understand, like a little bit of like maybe sinful to throw it in the barrel because it's like, no, you need to get the purity of the spirit of the plant. You're not trying to impart these other flavors on it. Now, people do, nothing against that.
You got to differentiate somehow. You got to create something.
Yeah. And then now if there's going to be like, more taste for it, then of course people are going to explore, just like all the different finishes you get with bourbons and ryes now and all that. But yeah, so this is an Espadín and something about Café y Cacao. So I'm going in, man. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Episode 1. If you're releasing this as the first one. I like it.
First taste of the day. Let's see.
It's been a while since I've had a mezcal, so trying to remember what I've typically had. My brain has no frame of reference. So this is just good
pure,
flavor.
just fresh, yeah. I love the 98.2 proof too.
Yeah,
it's a good little zone to be in.
And I mean, I'm feeling the heat, but it was pretty smooth up front. But I guess that's just the purity, right? Like that's,
It's giving me that nice little, I know obviously it's from Mexico, but a little bit of that Kentucky hug, I'll say, as they coin it in bourbon land. But
this is designed to sip, right? Like this isn't designed.
Oh yeah.
Like you don't mix this. I mean, I've had them in.
You can throw it in a margarita or like a Oaxacan old fashioned. Like there's nothing wrong with that. I definitely sip them though.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of flavor. I think. I mean,
yeah, it has like a richness to it.
There we go.
It doesn't have that more like kind of sweet cream flavor that some have. I definitely get the smoke quality, but it's not overbearing.
No.
And I for sure get that coffee flavor. Like to me, it's like a dark chocolate. I remember when I got the sample.
Yeah.
And that's before I even realized the cafe part. And before I read the label, actually, I was like, all right, it's like smoke, but I get a little bit of like dark chocolate. Like I'm talking like that 80%, 85% baking cocoa. And I can't, man, even when I like breathe out, I can kind of taste it. I do definitely get that like coffee bean kind of flavor. That's if you've ever smelled like coffee beans. I'm not a coffee drinker.
I was gonna say, do you drink
know.
coffee? I don't drink coffee, so I have no frame of reference on that one.
Yeah, so I gotta share this with some folks that are like really in the coffee and see what they have to say about it.
My wife's a coffee drinker. I'm curious if she would like appreciate. She's a margarita person, but she might appreciate something like this in a margarita.
Yeah, this is a good one. I am glad I picked it out.
Yeah,
and
I'm enjoying this, man.
Yeah, if anyone's ever in the Azusa, California area, Louie's Liquor. I think they have another location somewhere else too, but this is the only one I've been to. They have a handful of mezcal and tequila picks. Yeah. They just got a Buffalo Trace store pick in as well. A really good Knob Creek pick. I will say out loud that some of the prices are a little on the high side.
Yeah, he's set up in Azusa, which has become like a place that's not as cheap to live anymore.
Right. Just a tad. I know people got to do what they got to do, but no regrets on this. I really like it. And yeah, I just want to share it with a bunch of people. So, and hopefully pick up a couple of their other picks too.
Yeah, man.
I was like, I can't be buying bottles anymore like I used to. I was like, I'm just going to go in and get this Buffalo Trace. I shouldn't even buy this. Like, I never drink Buffalo Trace, dude. I have like 8 fucking Buffalo Trace bottles. And I remember when I was doing my whiskey collection videos, I'm like, why do I have 2 of these back here? Like, where do these even come from? Like, I feel like I've gotten a couple store picks like by choice, much like this one, but other than that, I'm like, where do these other bottles come from?
You can't just go in, dude, and just get one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the
I'm like, I guess I have to get the mezcal too.
I don't know if you. I mean, I know I've seen your videos on your collection and stuff, and you don't keep a list or running list or anything like that. So
I need to. So I want to make a spreadsheet because at this point I'm like at least 200 bottles in.
Right. There's no way you can remember all that shit.
So I need to make a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Like when I did the podcast episode with Chris. Oh, what's it? Chris Wall. I forgot his name, but his name was Chris. Is it Chris? The dude who created Knows Your Bourbon, the Knows and Kids.
Yeah, the Knows and Kids.
When we were deciding before the recording, like what we were going to drink for the show, he sent me his spreadsheet of what he has, and it was organized. So I'm going to model it after his.
Smart.
Because his was based off like, I think it was, obviously bourbon, rye, scotch, whatever. Then distillery.
Yeah.
How many bottles of each one he had. Single barrel store picks. Like it was super organized. Which ones he's willing to trade, which ones he's willing to sell.
I think it's a great idea. I know my dad's a collector of comic books. It's not the same thing, but you get to a certain point where there's no way in hell you can remember everything. So I started doing that with my video games. So I'm just like, because then you end up buying the same thing like by accident. Anyway, it's a good idea.
Yeah, so. There's definitely been a couple times where I've like had a bottle in my hand at the store and I'm like, do I already have this? It's really bad that I don't even know.
Right, that you don't know. No, I mean, that's really good too. You got a good collection.
Yeah, that's nice. I definitely have to, this is going to be funny to say, but I definitely have to drink more because I got to get rid of some of this stuff. So
I don't want to derail the conversation, but did it survive? Did the earthquake ruin any of your bottles or anything?
I didn't know there was an earthquake.
Okay,
so it's all good. My bottles are all intact.
That was like the first people I know who collect. That was like the first thing anybody asked them was, "How's your bottle? How's your bottles? How's your bottles?" One guy lost a little bit of his stag that it was open at the time.
Really?
So some of it poured out because he had it on a countertop. So
man, that's scary. Yeah,
that was a bummer.
Sometimes I look at my shelves and it's funny because top shelf, it's like the most expensive stuff goes up there, and I look at the top shelf and I'm just like, I feel like I should put this on the bottom. Like all the most expensive stuff needs to be in the safest area.
That goes over. Yeah, dude.
But then I think also ironically, when my infinity bottle broke, it was on the bottom and a bottle fell from the top and caved it in. The Blanton's Black and the infinity bottle caved both of those in, but survived.
So now you need to get rubber sleeves basically for all your bottle. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that shit.
Right.
Like just protect it any way possible.
Yeah. Shoot. Well, yeah. So, very good. If you're into mezcal or you're just, want some options to try, whatever the case may be, check out Louie's Liquor. They got a really good selection over there. And yeah, it's cool to see some private, selections of these as well. So
always cool to take a chance and then come up with something like this.
Yeah. I love rolling the dice. You know what I mean? And sometimes you win. I'd call this a win. And I love it, when it's a local store as well. Like, like Louie's, Canyon City.
I'm getting more. I'm getting that. I've definitely got the chocolate cocoa on that one for some reason. Yeah. That was weird. That hit me right before I took the water. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no. All right.
In the barrio, the homeboys know that everything happens on the boulevard, and the boulevard happens at night. Lowriders cruise a whole world that's just a boulevard wide, while the cholos live with a vengeance, one night at a time.
I knew when to get out. I don't know about you, Cole.
This is the best job you ever had. Where you gonna go next, huh?
I ain't from no barrio, it's just me.
Choco!
I wanted to be there, man. But I just get real mad sometimes. And I want to do something, you know? I want to do something, but I don't know what.
Two brothers fight to survive.
When a dude gets hit up and he doesn't do nothing about it, he's working on his own barrio, man. What the hell have we got?
And they meet at a point of honor where the only solution is revenge.
I want you to take the car and go to your parents' place.
Wait a minute.
We gotta keep control. Just the dudes who did it.
But to really understand, you've got to live through Boulevard Nights.
Boulevard Nights, 1979, directed by Michael Pressman, who would go on to direct Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze.
I couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
But when I was looking through this.
I would have believed him more if he directed the first one. Because that one's actually pretty gritty and has a similar look.
Yeah, totally.
But all joking aside, so this is a movie I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I haven't done it yet because in the very first season of the podcast, I was fortunate enough to get Danny De La Paz, the actor that played Chico himself, on the podcast. And so we talked about the movie. He shared his story about how he came up as an actor and how he first got that role and just shares his experience making it. We also talked about other films in his career that are a little lesser known, talked about American Me, talked about movies in general, and it is a very awesome episode. So if you happen
go back
to
and listen.
Yeah, if you
and watch it, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Very early on. I was listening to it yesterday and watching it, and I'm like, good Lord, man. Like, it was back when I was living in a garage, and it's like not lit well. It's only 2 cameras.
You're surprised, like, why did he even show up to this, dude?
Yeah, and you can tell I'm super, because I think he was the second like special guest I had. The first being Natasha Breyer, the cinematographer of Honey Boy and Neon Demon. So I was still new, and this is season 1 of the podcast.
Right.
Like, it may have been episode like 15 or 20. It's pretty early on.
Damn.
So I was new at everything. Clearly, like looking back on it, clearly very nervous. And I remember getting raked through the coals in the comments, and I don't read comments anymore because of this. But I was getting raked through the coals because I said yeah all the time.
Oh, jeez.
I guess,
shit. Then keep me off the podcast.
Right. Yeah, people were apparently very upset by that. They're like, oh, this dude really ruins the interview by saying yeah. I'm like, well, I'm listening. I'm engaged in the story.
Right, you're having a conversation.
Yeah, so
this is why you don't read comments.
Yeah. Yeah. But either way, I mean, you know, it's hard for me to listen back on, but
sure.
Anyone else who's new to this or may not have seen it, if you want to hear, you know, stories from the man himself, then please go back and watch it. And Danny, if you happen to be listening to this, man, bless your heart for coming on and doing it with me and being patient and just being cool. And it's nice because we still talk and everything once in a while.
Name kept in touch with those guys. That's cool.
Yeah, it's been a few months, but yeah, it's been really cool. So I appreciate, you know, him for coming on and, you know, giving me a shot when I was still like completely new at this. But
no kidding.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, you haven't seen this movie before, and I'll give the quick little IMDb synopsis actually.
Yeah, because I don't think at least people our age, I had no clue about this film. And I grew up in SoCal. 20 minutes from East LA. So.
That was the thing. I was curious because I was like, I can maybe find somebody I know that is more tied into this and has probably seen it, but I'd love to talk about it with someone.
Okay.
You know, I was like, that might be too easy. So let's share with someone who probably hasn't seen it yet, you know? But yeah, here's off of IMDb. From executive producer Tony Bill comes a gritty and groundbreaking look at Los Angeles gang life in the city's Mexican-American barrios. I mean, I guess that was a fine synopsis.
So I checked Wikipedia really quick just to have a little, so I knew a little something about it going in, because I'm trying to, when I watch a film, anytime before I was born, I try to place myself kind of in that time period. Just, I think sometimes it helps with context and stuff like that. And so when I saw that there was this controversy because of some of the films that were released at the time, whatever, glorifying fucking gang violence and stupid, I shouldn't say stupid, but some really wild accusations of a film that obviously most people hadn't seen. And I haven't even seen the film. So I take all those things with a grain of salt. So going in, that's all I knew. And so as a first experience, I did my best. I've been trying to do this with any a film I haven't seen before, is like, put yourself in the theater mindset where you block out everything. Don't be distracted. Biggest screen I can get, greatest sound I can get. And before I get into this, do you have an HD version of this?
No, I just have the DVD. I think there's a Blu-ray.
You can't. I couldn't find an HD version of this, so I'm watching it on SD. So that part rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. And I think the most awesome thing about it is that had absolutely no hindrance on my enjoyment for the film. I love so many things about this film. I was immediately taken in by the performances. The leads are just immediately, I care for them, and I was immediately struck by just being into the world and everything like that. And on the very first scene where you've got the guys crossing over territory and spray painting, I'm like, is this just going to be kind of stereotyping all this stuff? Because it could easily have gone down that route, and it's absolutely not that. It's about this family, these two brothers, their lives, what it's like living in there. Because I watched the trailer first. I don't know if you've seen the trailer, but it kind of sold it a little bit like American Graffiti in East LA. That's the way I thought the trailer went down. And then it tries to kind of sell you on like, oh man, there's going to be gang fights and stuff. It's stupid things. I guess at the time that's how they were trying to get people butts in theaters. I get it. And I thought it was so much more than that, and a lot of just simplicity. And I was really enjoying everything I saw. I almost went in, and this is unfair, but I kind of went in thinking a little bit more like an American Me or something, where there's going to be these big gang politics and all these kind of things that I got to understand the strike. And it was not that at all, man. It's just at its very simplest. I got a great story about a relationship between two brothers.
Yeah.
As a guy with brothers, that's who I love, by the way. That was easy to. It's no wonder the film kind of worked on me so well.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I'm glad you dug it. And it's funny. I remember in that episode with Danny De La Paz, he was talking about that, how when it came out in theaters, there was a lot of people that were against it who hadn't even seen it yet because it just stereotypes and it keeps pushing this kind of narrative. And we'll talk about this in the other episode we're about to record later. That is kind of on the same subject. Yeah, and it's interesting that even at that time, people were aware of it. And yeah, it's crazy because this year, it's the same year that I think the Warriors came out beforehand.
Which I'd never seen, but I'm a little
Walk
familiar
Proud.
with
Well, Warriors, we're definitely going to talk about soon. Like that's on the list of movies to do. I love
surprise
the Warriors. Love the Warriors. Completely different vibe though. It's like not even close. Like,
that's totally different thing.
Yeah, which also makes it a little frustrating that it's like, how can you even put those two movies in the same? And that's the thing. It's like, are the people that are bitching about this even watching the film?
They haven't. That's the whole thing.
Like, how can you even consider them close if you've seen those movies?
I know I always bring them up on this podcast, and I'm sorry I'm going to do it again. Ebert, man. Roger Ebert writes about it. And in his first paragraph, he's like, the people who are protesting the movie obviously have not seen it. And he immediately jumps, absolutely, man, this shit's good. We're topping off, folks. Yeah. And so it cracks me up that those kind of controversies existed, and they're obviously drummed up for whatever publicity purposes, for whatever people want in that. And it's so obvious, but this movie is it's not that at all. And I think that's one of the things I loved about it so much is that it stayed grounded in the relationship between these two. And I'm glad that regardless of what was going on in the film, it always came back to their relationship and how they interact. And I thought that was a really good choice. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. Their dynamic is so good. And also with the character of Chuco, it's like, he plays it with so much humanity and compassion. Yeah. Man, he's so good at just conveying the inner turmoil with him. There's obviously this kind of misfit thing where he wants to fit in and he feels like maybe he can't connect with his brother for whatever reason. There's a moment where he's like, I guess I'm stupid. Like you said, you're not like, so he feels very down on himself. And it's like, I guess the only way he can feel better is like aligning himself with this other gang and, being somebody. Like one moment I like is when he goes to get the tattoo and he gets the tattoo, right? Like the cobra or whatever.
Yeah, the cobra.
And then later that night when they're walking down the boulevard and he's in the front with, I forgot the other actor's name, but he plays Smokey in Blood and Blood Out. But when he's walking up in the way he walks, like just walks taller, way more pride.
The way it's framed as well too, by the way.
Yeah. Nice, like tracking shot and everything. But they could have made this character like a complete asshole, angry, hot-headed over. Like I think it would have been way easier, and I'm glad they didn't do it this way to make him just like this hot-headed, angry person.
That's two extremes. No subtlety.
I like that he's a more softer person. It seems like who really, shouldn't even be in this situation, and maybe just feels like he has to be.
Dude, I'm so glad you mentioned
I love that performance and that aspect of it.
I was thinking about placing myself in 1979, where you've got, I wasn't alive then, but like this ideal of what a man is and what, a person who takes care of his family is and all these kind of things. They get the writing, he's able to articulate things that I found really surprising for that time period. It was like, don't call me stupid. It makes me feel this way. And I was like, really, first of all, the performance is just wonderful that he's able to be that vulnerable. But secondly, the words that he's saying, he's actually he's not able to articulate all of it. That's one of the things the stuff that he can't say is, just as good.
That's it. And man, okay, you said, like, I feel like that's what I was trying to get at. But, please. And that's what makes the performance so good. Is like the subtext, and even it feels very real the way when he is talking. Like, there's that great shot when, he misses the wedding. By the way, everybody, obviously there's a spoiler alert in the beginning, but again, if you haven't, where did you see it, by the way? Did you?
YouTube.
YouTube. Okay, you can rent it.
You can rent it.
Go rent it on YouTube if you haven't seen it yet, people, or buy it. It's the DVD is at Amoeba Records.
Only $10, by the way, if you want to buy it online. So it's definitely worth it.
There's that great scene. He misses the wedding and he comes back and he's on the porch, and I love. There's this beautiful like medium close up of him. Man. He's got the hat on. His eyes are in the shadow. It's just like a really great cinematic close up. You know what I mean? And when he's talking about, I just make these mistakes. I feel angry, and sometimes I get so mad, and I just do something I shouldn't do. So I love that there's an awareness there. And again, it doesn't come out in this very hot-headed way. Like, he gets in fights and everything a couple times, but I never feel like he's the aggressor, right? Like in the first scene, I don't think he threw the first punch. It was the other dude. And then same thing when they're at the car shop and he ends up getting fired because that dude, made a move on him first. And he feels like, even though his brother does have his back, he feels in that moment, I know I jumped around, but
it's totally fine.
He feels like he doesn't when he's trying to tell him, like, well, that dude hit me first, this happened. And his brother's like, I'm not even going to hear it. You're being a child right now.
And that's where in multiple times, you just highlighted two different times where I feel like this film plays on those expectations a bit, in that, like, I never hear Chuko talking about protecting the turf or any, like what might be used in a less film or a film that's about something else, like this is about a lot of the things that's going on internally to him, how he can't deal with, which nowadays, we diagnose these as definitely like mental health shit that you need to, you need support systems to deal with, whether it's family or relationships or anything like that. So that's one of the things that it kept me glued to my seat. At the same time, my heart kept breaking as I was watching, because there are just some things if he could just,
like articulate it
to maybe even, because obviously there's a couple times where it especially comes through in the performance, but his brother is like, reacts like, oh man, I had no idea, because they're not able, the way that he sees it, his brother is being the father figure, in the relationship. Right. So it's just that dynamic. Every single beat in the film really is portrayed in a way that seems very believable and makes you have a lot of empathy and sympathy. I had very much sympathy at times for, for the kid.
No, very, very believable is a good way to put it, because I feel like it teeters on this line of, it could be almost frustrating and hard to watch because Raymond does have his back, right? And I feel like he's not like an asshole older brother. Like, I feel like he handles things very, very well, and he's like really trying hard. And then clearly their mother is like also putting the pressure on Raymond to straighten out his brother, which is kind of a bummer for him, because he's got other things he's got to focus on,
Exactly.
And it could, like, again, it's just on the edge of where it could be uncomfortable to watch, in the sense of, as an audience, you're like, just listen to him.
Just do one thing differently.
Do it right. Like he's there. But yeah, I think it just performed so well, I guess written, directed so well as well too, that it never quite gets to that. And I think that's what makes it feel real, because I mean, I have two brothers, you've got two brothers, right? Like, and I know that there's stuff that I can't necessarily talk about, or I can't connect with them, that I can't connect with them with, even up to this point in my life, So
it absolutely feels real. And that's the thing I thought was actually one of the best qualities of the film, was I think that people who have ever had relationships with anybody, whether it's family or, loved ones or anything like that, could relate to that aspect of it. That I love the way that it's portrayed, because Raymond's like, there's a couple times where I'm like, I wish he would, listen just a little bit more to what he was saying, but he's trying to do the best that he knows how to do. Like, obviously something happened where father's not around. I don't think the film tells us at any point. So, so he's obviously, these are the skills he's got, and he's at the same time, he's got to be there for his mom and his girlfriend who, he's got his own stuff, like you were saying. So it's so relatable. It's very, it's so funny how even something in the late 70s can be so relatable to, you can apply it to, modern day. So,
and I feel like his character, the Raymond character, also another great performance.
Dude.
And but like everybody here,
great.
And we obviously we find out that, okay, he was once involved in like the gang life, he got out, he moved on, he grew up, I guess you can say, like just grew out of it, whatever, now he wants to start a family with Shady. Yeah. He cares about cars. He
still loves cruising though.
Yeah, loves like has his ideas of like, I'm gonna open up my own shop. This is what I'm good at. This is what I like to do. I love cars. Like he's got these plans and ideas, which is great. And I think that's such a good character. Like I wouldn't say I guess you could say maybe it's stereotypical because he's in the cars, whatever, but who cares? Chris Calling's in the cars. Like he built a car, you know what I mean?
He's into something, like that all of us can relate to that. He's got a passion for something.
Yeah.
And I think everyone, if you've ever been in a relationship with a significant other, there are times where you have to balance what you're passionate about with, your significant other. It's another thing. It's totally relatable. This just happens to be cars,
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people can relate to that shit. So,
and I feel like, I just love to see a character like that that isn't portraying and necessarily.
He's not perfect. He's not a saint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if people want to complain about like, oh, they're pushing the gang, like, stereotype or whatever. Well, I think this is a good, well-realized and dimensional character right here that does not do that,
I totally agree. And I hope we get into the cinematography a little bit. But before then, like, I don't think they sensationalize the violence almost at all in this film. In fact, when it comes, I do think it's pretty shocking and stuff,
It is. And another thing that they do very well in this movie, and I said this in the episode with Danny, that I love, it's these simple beats, right? How he shows so much compassion and humanity.
Right.
When he does go and get his revenge, right, on the guys, there's the moment where he does shoot him with the shotgun. Chuko shoots the other guy as he's running. And it's not like, gotcha.
Slow
you know what
motion,
I mean? Or
nonsense.
anything. It happens.
Don't even see the blood.
And there's a moment where you see that, he's shocked and he has this face of like, oh shit, like, what did I just do? You know what I mean? Like, and again, gonna have to live with that for the rest of his life. Like it impacts him. It hurts him. The fact that he did that. And that's the first person he's ever killed. And you see that is a very big deal.
Yes.
It's not just, we're going around like popping people
Blasted
off
everyone,
left and right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And I feel like you maybe even get that sense from like some of the other characters.
Too. I mean, we see the guy get a little beat up in the first scene, but the first time we're on the boulevard, which by the way is a great whole stretch because it does so much telling us what their world is like, telling us about the characters. Immediately, I'm on Shady's side. I'm like, this dude doesn't get, he just wants to do whatever he wants. So I'm immediately on her side as she's giving shit to Raymond. But then the way that the scene finishes by this fight, somebody gets stabbed, and it's not sensationalized. It's shocking. And it does. We're not even quite sure how it happens. We know there was a wrestling of the two guys, and then there's a knife in him.
Yeah.
And now people are helping each other get away. So the world a little bit. These people don't want it. They don't want cop interference. That kind of stuff. So just that scene does so much and it's really well executed with all of the beats and everything. Like it tells you so much, pushes everything so forward. And it's one of the times where I started putting my head up. I'm like, they've got these beautiful shots of seeing like the boulevard is fully realized. If you've driven down that area, I mean, it looks different nowadays, but you can you've seen areas like this, even if you're not from East LA, people cruise. I cruised when we didn't call it cruising, but there's a freedom when you turn 17 or whatever and you get a license and you go driving somewhere, and they did a good job of portraying that and that because there was fun to it and everything like that. Anyway, I thought the scene was that whole stretch was really well done.
Man, and that Lalo Schifrin score, man. That Lalo Schifrin music is so good. He did Mission Impossible. For anyone who doesn't know, like the Mission Impossible thing was Lalo Schifrin.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think also Enter the Dragon, I want to say, it was Lalo Schifrin.
Yeah.
And Rush Hour. But yeah, a lot of movies. But, and talking about that scene, so on the way here, I was listening to I go down the rabbit hole of Siskel and Ebert episodes on YouTube, which I love.
They're great.
And someone posted the episode where they talk about this movie.
Okay.
So I'm always like, oh man, I can't wait to see what these guys have to say. And so Ebert gave it a thumbs down.
Yeah.
And
his written review is a little more favorable. He did 2.5 out of 4 stars in his written review. So.
I've read it before. I didn't read
Okay.
it before this, but
Gotcha.
I think the last time I talked about this movie, I got to check it out again.
Yes.
But what was I going to say? And it's funny, like Siskel, who usually I don't agree with,
Same here.
like
I'm usually
so
not on his
often,
page.
I'm like, what movie did you
Yeah,
watch?
what did you
guy?
see, dude?
But this one, he immediately gave it a thumbs
Oh, wow,
up.
interesting.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
gave it a thumbs up.
Oh, okay.
Really liked it. But he did say something in the episode, and you guys can look it up on YouTube, that did show like, oh, you do not get this.
Yeah, he
guy.
didn't get it.
Where
That's
he
surprising.
talks about that scene and how, there's this the part where they're doing the hydraulics to jump the cars.
Mhm.
And he says like, oh, it's the two, like the rival gang people, and this is what they do to settle their. And maybe I'm wrong, but they're not like the rival gang. They're just the normal.
No, they're
people that are
gambling.
there.
These are friends that are
gambling. They're
throwing dice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like they're not doing the gang.
I mean,
thing.
unless I'm misreading it, but I don't. I thought those guys are friends. Yeah.
And he's like, that's what they're into, and it's kind of sad and kind of pathetic. And I was like, wait,
Oh,
what? Like, pathetic? Like, you wish you knew how to build a car like
right,
that.
dude.
Like, these people have like mad skills and
Yes.
technical abilities,
And they're proud of what they've made.
They're
I mean, this is
proud
a
of
whole
it.
thing.
They're passionate. It's a
Yeah.
whole entire culture, and you equate it to just being like pathetic gang stuff. So I thought that was like,
That's a
all
lot.
right, you kind of messed up, guy. But
That's a little off, but okay.
but he did have mostly good things to say about the movie.
I mentioned it before, but the reason I enjoy reading Ebert's writing so much is because almost always he'll point you in the direction of films that may have influenced this, or the films he thought about when he saw this, or things from culture. And so it's so helpful to go. For me, I love contextualizing this stuff. So like just putting myself in the late 70s, what it was like to live in East LA in the late 70s. Right. I think my mom was living in Azusa by that time, but she grew up in Watts in South Central, which is almost a whole different world. I know that's going to sound tough to believe. It's only 20 minutes away from East LA, but what was going on in East LA is not the same as what was going on in South Central or the suburbs where you and I grew up.
Right.
Like we're only a half an hour. Maybe East LA College is 15 minutes on if there was no traffic and shit from Covina, but totally different worlds. And I think it's one of the things that this film actually does really well and different than some of the other films set in East Los Angeles. Because we've been fortunate to get a fair amount of films that are kind of set in this area. Overall, I shouldn't say a fair amount, a handful of films that are about this area. And I thought this one does a really good job of almost having a little bit of a romantic quality to it while keeping it real and stuff like that. Like the Boulevard, I thought there was almost a romantic quality to it, but then obviously it turns into something that's a bit more violent. So
well, yeah, man. And I gotta say, like, I really do love, like you mentioned cinematography earlier. Dude. I do love the cinematography in this movie, and I don't remember if it was in the episode that Danny did with me or if it was in us talking at another time. But I remember at some point he mentioned how somewhere someone was talking about, I think maybe when they played it in New Beverly a year or two ago, which is a bummer because I couldn't go that night, but they did this movie. Yeah, on 35. And I guess it was like, there's probably not many prints of it. So from what I heard, it was pretty faded, but I don't know if it was there or someone talked about how, it looks like just kind of the way I understood it, like low budget and just kind of ragtag people making the movie. And I remember him being bothered by that because it's like, no, it's a big Warner Brothers production. And like
I thought it looked like $1 million film. Like I thought,
definitely.
Oh my God, there's crane shots. There's obviously there dolly. There's all this
beautiful,
well lit,
like downtown LA,
and the shooting on location had to have been a pain in the ass to get some of those shots.
And watching this, I think like I love the opening shot. It's like the house, and it looks like almost like early morning, but obviously it's nighttime. But the house follows them as they walk like down to the river, and then the nighttime and under the bridge. And I don't think we appreciate this enough in this era of films, and maybe it was just that time or whatever. But the naturalism, John Bailey is the one who shot this movie. I forgot the other films he did, but he did some big ones. And the naturalism that they capture, especially in those areas in that city, is just like no one does it like that anymore. And films like this don't get enough credit for that. Like people love to really hype Roger Deakins nowadays, and how he is very naturalistic lighter. He is one of the best. Like I'm not going to dispute that.
Stuff's beautiful,
but yeah, it's like here, and not every shot is like a painting, and it shouldn't be, but it feels so real, and it looks like you're there. Like when I walk the streets in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. or whatever, like that's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. And you also got to take into account as well, shooting on 35 millimeter film. And at this time, I'm not even sure if they had 500 ASA.
Yeah, I was wondering, what kind of stock they had access to.
I don't even think 500 was around yet. I could be wrong, but even if it was, 500 is not a lot. So for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, if you shoot like photos or video, there's ISO, right? Which is the camera's sensitivity to light. So in those older film days, you'd only have like 200 ASA sensitivity, which is pretty dark. Like you need a lot of light. And so for them to be able to light so many night exteriors, which isn't easy, on the street, and have it look very realistic and not being afraid to have them go in and out of shadows and all that. And
I will say that I've been doing a little bit of reading about movies from the 70s recently. And apparently that is one of the innovations we saw during the 70s in film was new film stocks. They were more sensitive. So I agree. I don't know if they were shooting on anything higher than 500 at that point, but that was one of the innovations of the 70s. So maybe they're just starting to experiment with some of that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think that the way that the shots, first of all, I never lost track of where I'm supposed to be looking. And I've really come around to this fact that one of the things that film can do and does so well is that we can be intimate at times. And especially, I only think like as my film brain goes, I'm like, oh man, it must have been tough to get some of these shots in the house during the wedding and all this kind of stuff, because it feels intimate. Like we feel like we're in the car with them. We feel like we're dancing in the house with them. We feel like, I mean, some of these spaces where the gangs meet and stuff, these tiny bedrooms and stuff, like that's where I think it was so brilliantly shot. Was that I felt like I was experiencing this with them. I got to be an observer. I got to go along with them as they're doing these things and as they're having these tough conversations. And that's one of the things I think was brilliant. So I thought the cinematography was just like, I was blown away to be honest here. Cause it gives you the impression like this might be like a more indie type of film, but I thought it was anything but. It felt like it was $1 million film.
And it puts you in it. You know, it does like you said, you're in the homes and that it never feels like, oh, let's move this wall out of here. You know what I mean? It feels like you're in the house.
Yeah, totally.
And so the lensing and everything is happening accordingly. And I feel like, too, it would be really easy to like, all right, this gritty East LA gang movie, let's do everything handheld.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I may have thought that. Like, let's be real. Totally. Like, you know, a lesser filmmaker may have thought that, but it's not that, but yet in the lighting and the performance, the costumes, everything, it's still okay. And just the fact that you're on location in these places, it obviously captures what's really there. And I just think nowadays, man, like if someone were shooting this now, they'd probably lean way too much into the color contrast. You'd get, which is nice.
It's great. We have those options.
Joker looks really nice. Yeah. I like the cyan and the orange, the sodium vapor. And all. I love sodium vapor.
Right. Oh, shit's cool.
I like all that stuff, but
that's my puppies.
But I think this is just right in the pocket and just right. And
it serves the story. Like it serves what these characters are experiencing. I'm also thankful that it's raining. I'm also thankful that we got to see so many locations, because it's kind of cool to look back and see what East Los Angeles looked like, you know, in the late 70s as it's about to turn a decade and everything. And I think that it's helpful to relate to the characters when you can experience their environment. And I think the cinematography, had it not been at this level, you might not have had that same experience.
Yeah,
you know, it might have been a different film. So, pretty cool shit.
Yeah, it's always amazing to see the skyline in some of these older movies of downtown LA, and like, man, there was not a lot of buildings.
Oh my gosh, it was way less.
And I had to do a shoot in West Hollywood today, so as I was driving through downtown to get back home, I was looking and I'm like, yeah, wow, how it's changed.
And I was also going to say, you know, I was a little surprised the storefronts. Some of the times you see the storefronts, there wasn't as much Spanish on the storefronts as I thought there might have been. Like nowadays, I mean, you can whole towns are, you know, you only get to get Spanish billboards and all that kind of stuff, which is awesome, you know. And I was a little surprised, but then again, there's not as many storefronts and billboards. You know, it's there's not as many people in LA, you know, in 1979 as there is nowadays. So you know, one of those things. One of the things I did, I want to say dread is the wrong word, but because I know the way that this film can only inevitably, there's going to have to be some sort of death in this film. And so that was the only part where I was only dreading, because I got to like these characters so much and I wanted to see them, some of them, you know, I wanted to see how many can make it out. You know, if only we could find some way to change. And the filmmaker brain in me and the person who's experienced this is glad they didn't go the easy way to make something like that happen. It's real. At the same time, it's when of all people, Mom's the first person. I was actually kind of shocked that Mom's the first person to get bumped off.
Isn't it like such a good scene?
Dude,
Like, and I mean,
so
it's obviously bad. It's very tragic, but
Yes.
it's so impactful and emotional. Like it still makes me like my eyes always well up in that moment.
Dude, I literally
It
got emotional.
It's really, oh man,
because it's
just
they're
like
at the highs of the highs.
dancing and
Chuko has come back in. He's dancing with Mom.
He's been gone.
Oh.
He's been gone for a week,
Yeah.
just kind of wandering around, and he plays it so well in that moment where it's like being the kid where let's dance, and he's so reluctant and doesn't want to do it, and starts to become vulnerable, starts to smile, and the fact that she accepted him, right? Because he's been gone for a while. They know they're upset. He has that that really great scene, that moment with Raymond. You know, he comes in. And he thinks that she's going to give him shit.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. She just embraces him, dance with me.
And he never even explicitly says forgive me or anything like that. This is all done by the subtext. It's
yes,
good, man.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And there's that moment of acceptance where he feels like, oh, I am loved. I have this place to go back.
I have a family.
And all that stacks up to make, that kill scene, that death scene, like all the more powerful.
So painful.
All the more powerful.
So painful. And a good way to play on my expectation that's, especially because the mom is so likable. She's loving her children, even sometimes where maybe they, she's just got this unconditional, and her performance is really she doesn't say a ton in the film, but she says just enough. And this is actually one of the things I respect about the film a lot, the efficiency. There's nothing's there for extras. Everything is there to serve the story. And when she gets shot, it's striking, it's shocking. It's so sad. And it's heartbreaking. It's literally I got choked up, man. I was like, oh, dude, this sucks.
And on that efficiency and subtext, and not using words to explain everything. It's like I love when we see this turn in Raymond, and this is something that also could have been done a way different way.
Oh yeah,
where all of a sudden he's like filled with rage, and being like a gangbanger again. I love that it doesn't come to that.
Totally,
they're driving.
Totally agree.
They're driving down PCH. I've never seen the beach. Well, there it is. And he just, all right.
Lives 20 minutes away from the beach and he's never seen the goddamn beach. So.
Right. Yeah. Man, that's it, man. But, and when he's talking to his brother, like, what'd you see? Who was it? What did the car look like? Tell me, and like getting it out of him. And when he gets the gun, and clearly, they get the guns, and we see that Raymond knows his way around it, even tells Chuka, you take the 38, knows what he's doing, but they never say anything. No. He doesn't get all macho. He just tells the other guys, the rest of VGV,
the group,
like, no, this isn't gang stuff. Like, this is personal.
This has nothing to do with
nothing to do with you. Yeah. Like, I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. This is familia, right?
Yeah.
And I like that he doesn't go act a certain way. He's very calculated in the approach of we're only going to get the person that did it. We have to wait for the sun to go down. We're going to go at this time. You Shady, lock the door, go here. It's not.
And poor Shady. Oh, dude, she's like,
we've just only been married for 5 days.
What am I supposed to do with this?
Like what happens?
Feel her
pain,
man.
Shot?
Yeah. I don't want to gloss over because you said one thing too, where Chuko once again says something very revealing, but doesn't explicitly. I don't remember the exact line, but something like, "I'm not a good cholo," like where he was talking about because he can't remember all the details about the car and the shooter and all those things that like he thinks is what it means to do the job well. Like he didn't know those basic things. And I think that's very revealing as a character aspect to him that there's a lot of things he doesn't feel like he's good at, Yeah. And so finding people who accept him obviously is something that he's going to, want to be around people like that. So, and you can see once again how Raymond he has more experience and he's probably, he's just in life. He's obviously a bit more, confident in what he does, and he's had the experience to back that up. So just really sad at the same time, you can understand. I mean, I've never been a revengeful person and I've never felt that way, but I know many people I've met who feel that way. And so I think that's why it's so easy to relate to what they're going through. Like you can understand that they want to make these choices and go do this to honor their mom, who we all love as an audience. So you can at least get behind that, right?
Yeah.
So,
and interesting enough, I mean, I imagine Chuko would have done it with his gang friends anyway.
Yes.
But really, it's like the driving force of this is really Raymond, which is interesting.
Totally interesting,
like he's
right?
the one.
That's not the one you would have thought.
Like, Chuko just, I don't know what the car looks like. You know what I mean? And Raymond's the one who's really trying to get down to it. And again, strategizing and calculating. And you get this, I like that it adds more mystery to him. Like to me, I get this sense of like,
as a dimension to him.
Like, oh, has he already killed someone before?
Right.
You know what I mean?
It makes you question it for
clearly
sure.
He
dude.
knows what he's doing.
Knows how to handle a gun. I mean, knows what needs to be done to make this thing happen. Yeah, super interesting.
And man,
it's tragic and it's somewhat inevitable, unfortunately, because of the way that some of the choices you have to make when these things get set in motion. And at the same time, when it happens, even when Chico gets shot, I'm like, maybe he'll make it. He got him to the hospital. Like maybe he'll, and by the time the doctor, it looked like he was dead by the time the doctors even go up into the car, but just really effective. Another scene, cinematography, really effective. The way a lot of that stuff is shot. I don't know what the budget of this film was. I know that it was made by Warner Brothers, so it had some money, but the efficiency of framing the whole thing and not having this big extravagant shootout, thank God, that, it was way more personal. And there's some shooting and stuff, but not glorified at all. It doesn't look like you'd want to be in that situation at all.
Yeah, it's not suddenly the Wild Bunch.
Right. Like another movie I love, but yes, you're right. It's not.
different thing.
Pike! It's not. No.
Well, and you got to love too that, and then in the end, like Chuko really only makes that decision. Like at that point, it's not even out of vengeance.
He's trying to protect his brother.
Protect his brother.
Yeah, man. Like,
so
you love him for that.
Now he has to be the one to protect his older brother because he has these things going for him. And if he's got to sacrifice himself to do that, then at this point, that's the only choice for him to make.
That choked me up, man. That he's like, he wants to be there for, like, that's his version of being there for his family and his brother. And I was like,
man, that just like really got me right now.
Right, dude? Like, dude, I literally, I got choked up when that, because once again, these are the things this is what I love about well-made films. It's these little things that have a huge impact.
Yeah.
And there's no hesitation. He picks up the car and go, So good.
And then it ends, life goes on.
Life goes on.
One of my favorite moments, and we'll wrap this up soon, but is the they said hi. That just always gets me. Close your hand like this, and then when he gets here, just open your hand. They said hi, and I always laugh. I just think it's the funniest thing, and I feel like because then it cuts to all of them in the car laughing about it,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm with them. Like, that's hilarious. They said hi. Yeah, I'm gonna open up the episode with that. But yeah, man. Any final thoughts? For me, great movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I can tell you that. I'm glad that Gene Siskel liked it.
Right. There's one thing that maybe you saw this, maybe you didn't, but it is actually selected by the Library of Congress to be preserved.
Oh, good.
So that future generations will basically be able to see the film and the film itself. They when the Library of Congress selects something, they have to get the most pristine copy of the film they can. And I hope this is a film that sticks around because I think there are a lot of people who could relate to it. I think especially some of our generations, maybe a little bit older, who maybe remember the film or remember seeing it come out, but who it could, I think it relates. And I think there are some things in there that are just really grounded in like family dynamics and things like that I think people would relate to. So,
oh man, one thing I forgot to mention is, when we see Raymond start to take this turn and they're planning to do their shootout and they go back to the house with Shady.
Okay.
And now he's just kind of ignoring her. Like he's kind of changed when it comes to her, which is really unfortunate.
Totally.
And you kind of hate to see that happen.
Because he went through a change to make sure she'd be with him,
Yeah.
So.
And there's this moment where, him and Chuko go in the room and it's on some Godfather type shit.
Oh,
dude, when
really
she's
is.
Like, what are you going to do? And he just looks at her and shuts the door in her face.
Heartbreaking.
I was like,
heartbreaking.
Literally like the end of Godfather 2. It's that the same kind of vibe. Just it's really unfortunate. Like he just doesn't even see her anymore.
Tunnel vision. He's totally tunnel vision at that point. It shows you how much he loves his mom. Like that something like that happens and you just can't see anything else. I totally agree. That whole part was very tough, especially because he's so it's been built up that I like him so much, and then he can't get past this thing that's happening.
And I'm so glad though that he's so reserved though.
Oh yeah, man. No,
it just wouldn't.
He's not hurting.
It would not be the same if he was all angry and yelling. Yeah, yeah. And like they do all this stuff without saying anything. Again, the efficiency, right?
So
Just
great.
like good, really good. Now I almost want to say like old school, like filmmaking
totally, right?
and storytelling that we don't always get.
We don't always
nowadays, you know, we just not the same anymore.
Because it's been done. I mean, this is not because it's done, but it worked well for this. It was perfectly toned for this film, or perfectly whatever you want to say, executed. For this
Yeah.
film, so.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Thing.
Hey, thanks for sharing it, man. Once again, dude, love it. And if I think it's 100 minutes. It's a quick surprise for such a film of just two people. You know, for the most part, these two brothers, like it's a quick watch. I blinked and I felt like it was over.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Shoot. All right. Boulevard Nights. That's a wrap.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to the Drinks in a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks in a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksinamoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.